In this 2 hours long project, we're going to do something very different. This is for our members who are taking Linux course. And the whole purpose of this project is not for you to replicate the same things. The whole purpose of this project is to go over it and understand that why you're learning Linux in the first place. Because if you're going for jobs and you're going to look for the description, which we mentioned in our introduction video in this course, we basically clearly mentioned that if you want to do a high-end jobs, engineering level jobs, and then systems administration, now there are hybrid systems administrator, there are cybersecurity professionals, there are DevOps people, there are Amazon, there are Azure type of administrators. Everybody will come across some sort of Linux. And that is hard to explain without actually showcasing from different type of professionals in one project. So what we did, we went out and we basically got different type of projects from different engineers, meaning Azure administrator or Azure engineer, cloud engineer, and then AWS engineer, and then we have another person who is a cybersecurity engineer. So we are going to compile that and now show it to you why it's important for you to learn Linux in this style. First, you need to finish the course. You need to understand how to use the Linux. But for what? Is it just to manage operating system? No, it is mainly for you to manage everything else that is done by Linux. So that's the whole purpose of this project. The purpose of this project is not for you to replicate things because you're going to be lost because you can't. The thing is this, if you're just new to Linux and you're new to IT, you're learning this, let's say for cybersecurity, you're of course not going to get into DevOps type of things. You're not going to get into Azure type of things. You just need to know how we use it. So this is going to open the whole world for you and start thinking about Linux in a whole different way because you will then realize why people put so much about Linux in job description whenever they want to pay you very high amount or high salary. There's a reason behind it. So first watch this whole project. Do not try to make or do not try to replicate things because at this point that's not the whole purpose. We want you to just go through this whole project, get an idea, get some skill set from it, how they use different type of tools to connect to these different type of devices and things like that, different type of systems to get into these Linux devices and what do they do. Get an idea out of it, get the skills out of it, but don't try to go and replicate the same project because it's not going to work. We didn't put this video for that purpose. So first you're going to see how IT professionals use Linux on Azure. Just creating a normal virtual machine, this is going to give you some good modern level skills. Then after that, we're going to show you how IT professionals use Linux on the, managing Apache server, which is a big one for a lot of companies. So you're going to get some skills. And when I say skills, try to see how an engineer kind of like, copy paste things. How does he use all this, SSH type of connection, PuTTY, and these are the tools that actually this is the type of skills that we learn and then we become more confident by using these tools, not just knowing about the operating system. So then go ahead and just finish the third one, which is going to be managing web application. And these days these are like, when we say modernization, that's what we're talking about. We don't use too many servers on premises now. We actually use web applications like this, and for that also you're going to see the instructor is using web app and Linux. And then after that, what will happen is that we're going to have more advanced type of things like DevOps related skills. And if you're going for cybersecurity, you should also go through all this stuff because at the end of the day, you're the cybersecurity analyst or whoever you are. You need to see what the other engineers do when they open these systems, and you get a clear idea how do they use it, so you can find out vulnerabilities or the, let's say they're not using best practices. There you go, you got the point right there. So understanding this from a cybersecurity side is very important as well. By going through, you're just going to get this whole new way of thinking about cybersecurity. Like this is how they set up, this is how they go. So I need to target certain areas. What if they're not doing it correctly? What if there's a lot of vulnerabilities or they're not using best practices? So you can see this is going to be a DevOps type of skill set. So that's why I say don't get too deeper into it, but just try to understand that how people are using it. Then you see it goes all the way to Docker's containerization, and then they use Linux in that as well. The whole point is just telling you how other professional use Linux, and if you are going to become a Linux person and you have to be taking on Linux for some company, they are going to be 100% using one of these type of technologies. So for AWS, you see they're using Cloud Shell, then they're using Windows and PuTTY. How is that possible? So using a PuTTY application on the Windows and then accessing the cloud Linux. And then at the end, you're going to see a cybersecurity demo, Kali. I mean, I've probably seen that like millions of times on YouTube. So our professional is going through and showing you a whole project, showcasing why Linux is important. I hope this video is going to clear a lot of things. And after this, you're going to be so focused on whichever side you go, you're going to know because you would have covered the whole course. And that is why the whole purpose of this course is going to be to make sure when you go and you open Linux in any type of situation, you as a JSS member will be very confident.
In this lesson, we will briefly talk about what is a virtual machine and how we can create virtual machines in Azure. Virtualization of a machine is actually the abstraction of the underlying physical hardware in which we can dedicate some part of the hardware like RAM, CPU and hard disk, etc. The reason for such abstraction is to run multiple applications with conflicting needs and dependencies on the same machine but in a segregated way. A simple example would be to assume an application that requires, let's say, Linux operating system, okay? But we have Windows operating system, and for some reason switching entirely to a Linux system is not an option. In that case, the concept of virtual machine comes into rescue. What we can do is we can create a virtual machine and install Linux operating system on it along with all the dependencies and package required for the application, along with the application itself. So that was a bit of a theory. Now let's go to the portal and see how we can create virtual machines in Azure. So here I am at my Azure portal, and I'll select this option which says virtual machines. And as I have no virtual machine previously configured in my subscription, so I'll have to add a new one. So I'll click on this add button. And then in here I can see two options, okay? One is the virtual machine and the second one is start with the preset configuration, okay? Now as the name says, if I click this option, I'm presented with all the preset configurations, okay? So one of them is for development and testing, one of them is for production, and then general purpose optimized, okay? You can see the specifications of these virtual machines as well, okay? So if I need something as high as 14 GB 4-core CPU, I can select this one. But for now, I'm not going to use the preset configuration. I'm going to be creating my own custom virtual machine. So I'll select the first option, which is add a virtual machine. And then I can select the resource group, which is labs_header. And then the name of the virtual machine, let's call it VM1, okay? In the production environment, you shouldn't be using this type of naming convention, okay? The name of the virtual machines, the name of the server should actually mean something, okay? So the region, let's leave it as East US. Now let's explore this option. What does it tell us? Now the first option that is available for me is the availability zone, okay? It says that physically separate your resources within an Azure region, okay? So Azure, in Azure we have regions, okay? And then within regions we have availability zones. Availability zone is nothing but a separate data center within a region, okay? So if I select this option, this means that my virtual machine will be replicated across multiple zones, multiple availability zones, or multiple data centers. So if one of the data centers goes down, my virtual machine would still be up and running and my application would still be up and running, okay? Now unfortunately in my current subscription this option is grayed out for me, so I'm going to skip that. Now the last option that I have is the availability side. What does it say? Automatically distribute your VM across multiple fault domains, okay? Now fault domain, you can just consider it as a physical rack, okay, in which we have multiple servers, and all of these servers within a single rack, they share the same power source, okay? So if I do that, my virtual machine will be replicated across multiple racks or multiple fault domains, okay? So if I do not select this option, if one of the rack goes down, if one of the fault domain goes down, there's some problem, my virtual machine will go down as well, okay? Now the next option, I have to select the source image, okay? So if I click on see all the sizes, sorry, it's not the source image, it's actually the configuration of the virtual machine, okay? So in here I can see all the configuration. I can select the virtual machine for my virtual core CPUs. I can select the RAM, I can select the data disk, then I can select the disk with the input output operations. Okay, so for something transactional I would need higher IOPS disk. Okay, and with that I might also use premium disk. Okay, but for the sake of demonstration I'll be using something as simple as this one, and the estimated cost of this, if this configuration, is around $7.50. Okay, but remember that this cost is not the actual cost that you're going to be charged at the end of the month. Okay, because along with the virtual machines you have other resources like public IP address sometimes, and along with that you have disks as well. Okay, so we're going to discuss that later, but for now I'm going to select this option. Now the next option that I have to choose is the authentication type. Okay, I can either choose password or I can either choose the SSH public key pair. Now in order to connect to the Linux machines we often use SSH key pairs. Okay, so I'll select the first option, and then in here it tells me the default username. Okay, so I'll leave it as it is, and then the next option it tells me either I can generate a new key pair or I can either use my own key pair. Okay, so for now I'll let the Azure generate a new key pair for me, and the name of the key pair, let's say I'll call it key1. Okay, and then the next option it tells me about the ports. Okay, so the public inbound ports option, in this I'll have to leave the SSH22 number port open. Okay, the reason why I'm opening this port on this virtual machine is that I'm using the SSH protocol to connect to this virtual machine. Okay, and the SSH protocol works on port number 22. So if this port is not selected in here, I won't be able to connect to it. Okay, next I go to the disk section, and then from this option I will just select the standard HDD. I do not need anything fancy like standard SSD or premium SSD. Okay, and then the encryption type, I do not need any special kind of encryption, so I'll leave it as default. And then in here it gives me the option if I want to create and attach the new disk with the virtual machine that I'm going to create. I will not be using that for now. And then under the advanced section I have these two options. The first one is use managed disk. Okay, so the managed disk is created at the time of the virtual machine creation, and then it is automatically mounted to the virtual machine. Okay, so if I uncheck this option, then it tells me to go ahead and create a new storage account, and from that storage account I'll have to create some new blob or file share and then mount it to the virtual machine itself. Okay, so I'll not be using that option as well. Now the last option that I have is eFirmal operating system disk. Okay, now in this case no separate disk will be created or no storage account will be created, but for disk space the cache of the virtual machine itself will be used. Okay, so but it tells me that the selected image is too large for the operating system cache of the selected instance. Okay, so yes, I'll go ahead to the networking section, and then under the virtual network I will select a virtual network. If there is no virtual network over here, I'll have to create a new one, and then I will select the default subnet. Okay, and then the public IP. Okay, so if I have two options here, by the way. If I select none, this means that my virtual machine will not have any public endpoint. Okay, so it will not be able to connect to the outside world. Okay, or the public IP address. But in my case I'll be using the public IP address, so I'll leave it as it is. And then the network security group, we have talked about it in one of our lessons. Okay, so I'll just select the basic ones, and then once again I have the public inbound ports option. Okay, so if I select none, then none of the inbound traffic will be allowed. Okay, so if I allow only selected ports, it tells me to select the few ports that I want to open for the inbound traffic. Now obviously I'm going to be needing this SSH port. Okay, so as we have talked about it earlier. Now I do not need, since we have not talked about any load balancing solution yet, so I'll be skipping these options. Okay, and I'll directly go to the management section. Okay, so boot diagnostics, I do not need any. I'll disable this option. Okay, and then the rest of the options we have not talked about them as well, so we'll just be skipping them for now. And then in here it tells me to enable auto shutdown, and if I check this, it gives me the option to select the time at which I want my virtual machine to shut down automatically. Okay, so I'll not be using this option, and I do not need any backup for now. And then here it talks about the updates. Okay, so yes, I'll leave this option for default, and then I'll go to the advanced section. Okay, so all is set here. Let's go to the advanced section. And then in here I have the first option that I have is that of extensions. Okay, so if I want my virtual machine to have some pre-configured extensions, I'll select this option. Okay, so if I select this option, I have many extensions that I can configure. Okay, but for now I'll not be using any of these extensions. Okay, I'll just go to the next option, which is custom data and cloud init. Okay, so this is a very useful option because this allows us to pass on certain commands. Let's say you are configuring Apache server, okay, which we'll talk about in one of our upcoming videos. Let's say you're configuring a web server and you want it pre-configured by the time the VM launches. Okay, so in here you can provide your installation and configuration script, and that will be passed on to the virtual machine, and by the time it launches you'll be able to see the effects of this scripts in your virtual machine. Okay, so the next option that I have is the host group. Okay, so the host group is a logical grouping of our virtual machines. Okay, so this helps me to select this option, which is the next option, which says proximity placement group. Okay, so if I want my virtual machines to be located not very far because of the latency purposes, I'll be using these options. Okay, for now we have not talked much about these host groups. Okay, so I'll be skipping these options as well. And in here it tells me the VM generation. You can, if you're interested, you can read about the generation in here. For me, VM generation 1 is okay. Next I go to the tag section, and what I do is I give it a tag. I give it a tag name owner, and the value, let's say value is header. Now you can use your own tags. Okay, tags are important because if someone logs into the subscription and someone sees this virtual machines and he's confused about like who created this machine, what is the purpose of this machine. Okay, so with the use of tags it will be easy for him to understand that okay, it was created by me. And let's say I can add another tag, which is the purpose of this virtual machine. So let's say in purpose I type in training. So now if anyone looks at this virtual machine by looking at the tags of this virtual machines, he can know that okay, this virtual machine was created by Heather for training purposes. Okay, but you can use your own conventions. Okay, that depends upon your organizations. Next I click review and create. Now in this section I'll be able to just review all the configurations and the preset configuration. If I've selected any, I'll be able to view them in here, and I'm okay with these settings. So I'll just click on create button, and then in here it tells me to download the private key and create a resource. Okay, now the reason why I'm having this pop-up is because at the time of virtual machine creation, if you remember, I asked the Azure itself to create the key pair for me because we are using the SSH method to connect to our Linux instance, which we'll see in a while. So that's why I'll download this private key, and this will be downloaded in a while. Okay, so I'll get back to you once it is all done. Okay, now that my virtual machine is up and running and I've also downloaded my private public key pair, the next thing that I want is to have a program installed, which is the name of the program is putty. Okay, I'll be using the program called putty to connect to my Linux instance, okay, via SSH method. So I will go to my program putty. Now you can easily download and install it via Google. Okay, you just type in putty and putty download, and then you can download the program for Windows using any of the provided link. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is to launch my puttygen. Okay, now before that I want you to note something. The public private key pair that I downloaded a while ago is in the .pem extension. Okay, now in order to connect to my Linux instance, I have to use the .ppk extension. Okay, so the first thing that I'll be doing is I'll be converting this file to a .ppk file. Okay, so I'll launch my puttygen first, and then make sure you do not mess with any of these settings. Okay, just simply click on the load button, and go to the download folder, select all files, and then select the key that you downloaded, which is in the .pem extension. Okay, just open it, and in here just provide any password. Okay, so pass 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, pass 1 2 3 4 5. I have provided the key phrase or the password. Now I will simply click on save private key and then save it by any name. Let's say the name of the key would be KKJ. Okay, and then I'll click save. I can just close this window, and if I go to my download folder, I can see the PPK file created. Okay, so now I will launch Putty, not PuttyGen. Okay, this time I'll be launching Putty. I'll click on it, and the first thing that I need to provide is the host or the IP address. Okay, so in this case I'll be using the public IP address. Now I hope you already know at this point why am I not using the private IP address, because from the previous labs you know that I have not created any VPN configuration, okay, for this virtual network, so private IP address will not work. Okay, so I'll be using the public IP address, and then I will paste it here. Now by default the SSH protocol is selected, which is exactly what we need, and the port is 22, which is fine. Now the next thing that I will do is I will go to the SSH section. Okay, I'll expand it, and then I'll select this authentication option. Okay, and then in this text field, in this browse field, I will browse my PPK extension file, okay, which is this one. So I'll click open and then simply click open. Okay, so now it's asking me for the username, so I'll just provide the default username which was provided by Azure itself at the time of VM creation. So the username was Azure user, I believe. Okay, yes, it was correct. So now I'll provide the passphrase which I created a while ago. And in here, as you can see, I've been logged into the terminal of my Linux instance. Okay, now we can do all the Linux things in here, okay, because I'm already logged into my Linux instance now. But for this video, that's it, and this is how we can connect to our Linux instances, okay, using PuttyGen and Putty. Okay, in this lab we will learn how we can create our own web server and then deploy our website on it. For this lab, I'll be using Ubuntu version of the Linux operating system, but you can use any flavor of the Linux as well. As for the web server, I'll be using Apache, okay, with the other choices being Nginx. The objective of this lab is to create our own web server using Apache and then deploy our website on it. We will also create and register a domain name for our website so that we can access our website globally using that domain name, okay. So let's see how we do that. Okay, so the first thing that we needed was a Ubuntu virtual machine or any Linux-based virtual machine to create this Apache web server. So I've already created that because from our previous lesson we know how do we create virtual machines, Ubuntu-based virtual machines, and how do we connect to them. Now at the time of creation of virtual machine, I made sure that port number 22 and port number 80 both are open. Okay, so in case you have forgotten to open them at the time of creation, you can just go to the networking section of the virtual machine, and then from here you can add inbound port rule, okay, and then from there you can just open port number 22 and port number 80. So port number 22 I'm using to connect with my Linux instance, Ubuntu image basically, and port number 80 will be used to handle all the incoming HTTP traffic. Okay, so once that is done, the next thing that we need to do is to install Apache server. Okay, so I've already noted down these set of commands here. So the first command is sudo apt update. Okay, so I will paste this command here, and it will just update all the package repositories within. Okay, just give it some time. Okay, so all packages are up to date. Okay, so the next thing is the installation command for Apache 2. So I'll copy this command and paste it here and type Y for confirmation. And now it's going to install Apache server on this machine. So it's going to take a while, so I'll get back to you once the process is completed. Okay, so next I need to create a directory for my website. Okay, so let's say that the name of my website is, let's call it my website. Okay, so I've created this. I will create this directory. Okay, using the mkdir command, and the directory will be this. You have to remember this structure. Okay, the directory should reside in variable and then variable folder, www folder, and then within that folder it has to be the website name. Okay, so I've created this command. Now I will copy it and paste it here. So now my directory is created. Okay, so now this folder is gonna basically hold all my website related files. Okay, so I will navigate to this directory, and then within this directory, let's say it has to be a very simple website, and it only has a main page which is index.html. Okay, so I will create a file. As you can see in here, there is no such file over here as of now. Okay, I typed in ls and it did not show me anything. So the next I need to create is the main page. Let's call it index.html. It has to be this name. Okay, you have to remember that the main page of the website is index.html. Okay, so I will create index.html and open it in a nano editor. Okay, so within this file I will paste the simple HTML code. Okay, and it simply has a text: I am running this website on a Ubuntu server. Okay, so I'll paste this content here, and then I will exit this file by Control and X, and then press Y for confirmation and press enter. Okay, so now my main website page has been created. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is to go to this directory. Okay, this directory etc and then Apache 2 and then sites available. Okay, so let's navigate to this directory. I'll just copy it from here. Okay, so within this directory, let me show you something. Within this directory we have two default configuration files. Okay, one is for SSL and the other one is for the normal HTTP. Okay, so then in the next step I'm going to be using this base configuration file to create a configuration file for my own website. Okay, so I'll just copy it. I'll just copy this default configuration file and then create a new file which is my website.configuration file. So as you see now, I'm using this base file to create a configuration file for my own website. Okay, so I'll paste this command here, and then the next thing that I need to do is to edit my configuration file for my website. Once again, I'm gonna open it in a nano editor. Okay, and what I need to do now is to add a few lines in here. Okay, so the first tag is server admin. Okay, so the server admin is already here. Now what this tag tells us is that in case of some issues, in case of HTTP related issues or server related issues, there will be an email dispatched to this email address. Okay, so for now I'm okay with the default setting. I do not need to mess with it now, but if you want it to be your own email ID, you can do that as well. Okay, and the next and important thing is the document root. Okay, now document root is actually the root folder. You have to give the path to the root directory of your website. Okay, so in our case it was var www and my website. Okay, so I'll just copy this command from here. Okay, so the document root tag is already here. Okay, let me just eliminate it and then paste it here. And then it's not GCI. The name of our website is not GCI, it's my website. So I will just correct it and then leave it as it is. Okay, now the last thing that I need to do is provide this tag. Okay, server name. Now let me tell you what this is. Now as we discussed earlier, the agenda of this lab was to create a web server, create our own website, and then use this domain name to access our website using this domain name. Okay, so the server name has to be www.haidarsaji.tk. Okay, I already have this domain. Okay, I will show you in a minute. So that's it for this file. I'll just exit the file using Control X and then Y for confirmation and press enter. Okay. Okay, so once the configuration of my website is done, what I need to do next is I will disable the default Apache web server page. Okay, so the next time when I type in this IP, I won't be getting this page. Okay, so the command for that is sudo a2 this side and then the name of the default configuration file. Okay, so I'll just paste the command here. Okay, so it tells me that this the site is disabled. So the next thing that I need to do is to now enable my newly created website. Okay, so as you can see, sudo e2 en site, which stands for enable site, and then name of my website dot configuration. Okay, so I'll paste the command here, and now it tells me that my new website is now enabled. Now lastly, what I need to do is to reload the Apache service. Okay, so the command for that is sudo service apache 2 reload. Okay, now remember that if you're using some other version of Linux, these commands might be a little bit of different. Okay, you might be asked to use systemctl, but the idea is to give you the flow, that like how this whole thing works. Okay, and the rest you can figure out yourself. So as for now, I'm on Ubuntu image, and for Ubuntu this command works just fine. So I'll paste this command here, and we are done with the configuration. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is to go to my domain name registrar and register this domain which I typed in as a server name. Okay, so if you remember, my server name was www.haidarsaji.tk. okay, so now I have to register this domain, which I've already done by the way, and then I will point this domain towards the public IP address of this virtual machine. Okay, so I'll show you how it is done. Now remember that I'll be using Freenom for this demonstration. Freenom is a domain name registrar. It has some free domain names which you can use for testing, just like I did for this lab. And you can also purchase the officially qualified domain names. Okay, so I'll just go to this website. You might also need to create an account in here. So I will just sign in, as I already have the account, and I'll just log in. Okay, so from here I will go to the services and then go to my domains. Okay, in case you want to register a new domain, I'll show you how you can do that using this domain name registrar. Okay, using Freenom. So let's say you want some domain name like let's call it food apps. Okay, so if you click on check availability, and in here you can see all the domain names available for this keyword. So you can see some of these are absolutely free. You can use these ones to test your deployment, or you can go for the paid ones. Okay, so depending upon your own requirement, you can select any one of these. Okay, so for my domain name, I have already registered one, so I'll go to my domains, and then in here you can see I have registered this haidarsaji.tk. Now if you remember, this was exactly the server name which I provided in my website configuration file. So I'll go to the manage domain button and then go to manage Freenom domain name server section. Okay, so it looks like it's some kind of refresh issue. So I'll open this page again. Yes. So as you can see, I have a record over here which says that www.haidarsaji.tk will be pointed towards this IP address. Now if you see, this is actually the public IP address of my virtual machine. So let me just go back to my virtual machine. As you can see, 52.149.163.108. Okay, and you can see the same public IP over here. Okay, so I've already made these changes. I've already added these records. So it's time to test this domain name. So what I will do is I will just copy this haidarsaji.tk. Oops. And then prepend www. Okay, so if I press enter, you can see it takes me directly to my website. Okay, so This is how easy it is to make your own domain name, create your own website, and host it on a virtual machine. Okay, so in this lesson, we will talk about what is Azure Web App, and then we will configure a simple web app service and see how it works. So Azure Web App provides a platform to build an application in Azure without having to deploy, configure, and maintain all your Azure VMs manually. Okay, so let me give you an example by comparison. If you remember our lecture on load balancing and auto scaling, what we did in that lecture was we created the load balancer, and then we created the auto scaling group, and then we created the auto scaling policies. Like, the point is to tell you that we were developing everything from the scratch. Okay, so the attractive feature of Azure App Services is that we don't have to worry about all those things manually. Okay, we don't have to configure them manually. Most of those things will be just configured by configuring the Azure Web App from a broader perspective. Okay, so we don't have to configure about all the policies or the scheduling in the auto scaling. Now, another important feature is that we can build our application using the ASP.NET, PHP, Node.js, or Python framework. Okay, so Azure Web App gives us the pre-configured development stacks. Okay, so if my application is in .NET, what I can do is I can just select my development stack from the configuration portal, and then I do not have to worry about installing all the packages manually, go to the Microsoft website maybe and downloading the distributions. Okay, and then look for a particular version. I don't have to worry about all that headache. Okay, all that things are being taken care of by the Azure Web Service itself. And then another important feature is that Azure Web Apps integrates very well with some of the common development environments such as Visual Studio or GitHub. Okay, so let's start building a simple web app and see how it is done. So I'm at my Azure portal home screen, and what I need to do now is to go to the Azure App Services. Okay, so I'm going to type in App Services, and in here I should be able to see this icon which says App Services. Okay, it's a globe icon, I think. So I'll click on it, and I'll add a new one, and then select the subscription, select your resource group, and then give your app some name. Okay, so let's say I call it Heather Web App. Okay, now keep in mind that this has to be unique. Okay, this has to be globally unique, because our website, our Azure Web application will be accessed using this DNS, which is heatherwebapp.azurewebsites.net. Okay, so it has to be unique. And then the second option that we have is publish, and it gives me the options of code or Docker container. Okay, so if I want to publish the code, I will be selecting this option. But if I'm doing this whole deployment with the containerization process, then I'll be selecting this option. Okay, but once again, we have not talked about Docker containers, so I'll skip this option and keep this option. Okay, check, which is the code. And then the runtime stack. Okay, so what this option is basically the if I select let's say ASP.NET version 3.5, what it does is that it will download all the dependencies on the backend server. Okay, so I do not have to install the packages and the runtime environments for my application. Okay, depending upon your own requirement, you will have to select your own development stack. Okay, if you have a PHP application, there are specific versions for that available as well. Okay, so you'll be selecting these options accordingly. Okay, so let's say I select PHP 7.3. Okay, and then the operating system, I can either choose Windows or Linux, but let's just keep it Linux for now. Okay, and then the region, so I'll just keep it as East Asia or East US. Okay, depending upon your requirement, where your application will be accessed the most, you'll have to select these options. Okay, and then the app service plan, the important feature, the important option. Okay, so basically in this option we have the configuration for the underlying backend servers. Okay, so we have the SKU and size. Okay, so if I click on change size, I should be able to see the different size options for Azure Web Apps. Okay, so if I'm creating an environment for the production environment, I'll most probably be using this production environment. Okay, and then we have the underlying configuration for the backend servers. Okay, I can select according to my own needs. Okay, and make sure that whatever option you choose, make sure that you have a good look at the included features, okay, and included hardware as well. Okay, so basically we have storage, we have memory, we have compute units, okay, and some of these options will have the features like auto scaling, which is the important one. Okay, isolated I have never used, but it has some dedicated features. Okay, but then again it depends upon your own requirement which one you choose. Okay, so for development and testing purposes I'll be using the first option. Okay, and then I'll be using this F1 category. Okay, so as you can see in F1 category I do not have the features like custom domains, SSL, or auto scaling. Okay, if you go back to the dev test, okay, I do not have these features. Just give me the underlying hardware and that's about it. Okay, I have only 1 GB of storage, but for the demonstration purposes that will do. So I'll select F1 from the dev test environment and click on apply. And then next I'll go to the deployment section. Now basically the deployment section is all about how you can deploy your code to, what option do you choose for the deployment of the code to your backend servers. Okay, so what it says here is that GitHub Action is an automation framework that can build and test and deploy your app whenever you commit, whenever you make a new commit in your GitHub repository. So basically what it does is that the developers who are continuously making changes in the GitHub repository, okay, that is your main repository, whatever changes they make and push on the GitHub repository, that changes will be automatically deployed to the backend server. Okay, so you don't have to manually deploy them. Now I'll not be using this option because the development stack that I chose does not support the continuous deployment. Okay, so I'll just leave it for now, because the continuous deployment and continuous integration is the topic for another video. So I'll just skip that for now and go to the monitoring section. Okay, now again it tells me that application inside code less monitoring isn't supported with your selection of subscription. Okay, so it has something to do with my subscription. I do not have the required subscription to enable this option. But basically what this option is about is that it actually monitors the application and the errors that occur during the runtime of the application. Okay, so which helps the DevOps and developers understand like why the application is failing, if there is some exception or something like that. Okay, so basically this tab is all has to do with the monitoring. Okay, so next I'll go to the tags. And it's always a good practice to give some tags to your resources that you make in Azure, but for now I'll just skip that and go to the review and create section. Okay, so once again you can review all the settings that you made previously. So as you can see, the runtime stack that I'll be using is 7.3, PHP 7.3, which is fine. And I'll just click on create. Now it takes some time to create, so I'll just get back to you once the Azure web app is created. Okay, so our Azure web app has been created. Now, before I demonstrate to you like it is working, before that we will just discuss some of the important options within this tab. Okay, which are important to monitor and configure the Azure web apps as you proceed. So the first option that I'll be discussing is the deployment slots. Okay, now unfortunately for this subscription the deployment slot option is not available. I have to upgrade the Azure web app to the standard or premium to be able to see that option. But let me give you a general overview of the deployment slots. Okay, so basically what it does is that in a production environment you have the deployment phases. First you deploy to the test phase, your upgraded code you deploy to the test phase, and then later on when it is passed by your team lead or the technical lead, then it is merged into the main branch. Okay, and that's how it works. So basically the deployment slot is all about that. We have the test slot and we have the production slot. So once the code is accepted in the test slot, we can just swap the slot and the code is then pushed to the deployment to the production slot. Okay, and then we have the configurations. Okay, so if I go into that, now basically what I can do in the configuration tab is to create the application and the connection strings for my resources. Okay, so basically if I as you can see the blade over here, I can add a new application string or the new connection string. Okay, now we have talked about the connection strings. Okay, basically what it does is it provides you a means for your resources to be connected to some application. Okay, So if I want to enable if I want to create a connection string for my, let's say, my database, MySQL database, so I can just type in the name and the value, and then that will be saved as a variable, okay, and that variable we'll be using in our application. And there's the another important feature, which is the scale up and the scale out, okay. So if I go to the scale up, what scale up basically means is to increase the specs of the existing backend server, okay. For F1 we do not have the scale up option, okay, or scale out options as well. So let me just quickly upgrade it to B1. And if I select B1, you can see that I can have the auto scale up, and I can not auto scale, but manual scaling, and I can scale up to the 3 instances, okay. So let's click on apply. The auto scale up and scale out options are available only for the production and the isolated one, okay. For the dev test purposes, we do not have the option for the auto scale up, okay. We have to manually scale them. Now if I go to the scale out option, you can see that from the previous section we upgraded our Azure Web App tier, okay. So now I can manually scale my backend instances all the way up to 3, okay, and depending upon my requirement. So for now I'll just keep it to 1, okay. And then we have the app service plan. Now in here we can basically monitor the CPU percentage, CPU consumption, memory percentage, okay. We can monitor these metrics, okay. So based upon these metrics, I'll know that when do I need to scale up or scale out, okay. Okay, so one last and one of the most important options that I need to discuss here is the deployment center, okay. So if I go to the deployment center, what it lets me do is configure my code repositories with my Azure Web App, okay. So basically what it let me do is select the source of my repository, okay. I can either select GitHub or Bitbucket or localgit, okay. So let's say if I select GitHub, it will ask me to authorize my GitHub account, okay. So you just click on, there will be an authorize button over here, okay, if you have not already authorized a GitHub account, okay. Now unfortunately for this lab I do not have access to this account that you see over here, okay. So I'll not be able to show you that, but the point is to show you this option that if you configure the GitHub account, the GitHub repository in this section, what happens is that if any developer pushes some changes in the code, and the code is updated in the GitHub repository, you don't have to go to the backend server manually and pull the latest code, okay. It will automatically deploy the code, okay. So with that being said, let's just go to the overview section. And in here you can see the URL of our Azure Web App, okay. So if I grab this URL and I paste it in another tab, I should be able to see a default page, okay. Now let me show you how we can deploy manually the code on our backend server, okay. So let's just go back to the Azure Web App. So if I need to connect to the backend server behind this Azure Web App and deploy some code or install some more packages, okay, I can always do that. So what I need to do is under this section, I should be looking for the option which says SSH, okay. So I'll select this option and then click on this small icon, this small link which says go. So basically what it does is it creates a browser-based SSH connection with my backend server, okay. So as you can see, I'm connected to the backend server. Now let me just show you quickly the project structure of the Azure Web App, okay. Like the default page that you see in this section, like where does it get it from, okay. So let me just quickly show you that. So the default project structure is something like that. We need to go to the where directory /where directory, okay, and then in /where directory we have these folders, okay. Let me just open up my magnifier as well, so you should be able to see the commands too. Okay, So first I traverse to the /var directory, and then in my var directory I can see all these folders. Okay, so the important folder here is the www. Okay, so let me just go navigate to the www folder. Now if I want to view the contents of the www folder, I can just type in the command ls, okay, because it is Linux based machine. Okay, now in the www folder I can see another folder which is html. Okay, so let's just navigate to the html folder and then view the contents of this folder. Okay, so I have another folder inside which is the www root. Now inside this folder we have all the project files. Okay, but for now, if you see, we'll just be having only one file. Okay, only one file, which is the basic hosting star.html file. Okay, now this file contains all the contents that you see on the browser. Okay, when I grab the link and paste it in the new tab. Okay, so basically this is the page that is contained within inside this HTML file. Okay, so just to demonstrate you something, I'll just remove this file by using the command rm okay. I've deleted the file, and let me just create my my own file. Okay, my own index.html file. So let me just call it wait a minute, let me just grab my magnifier once again. Okay, so in order to create a new file, I can type in nano. Okay, because I'll be using the nano editor to edit the file. You can also use the vi editor, Linux vi editor, you can use that as well, but for me I'm comfortable with this nano editor, so I'll type in nano, and then the basic HTML file would be index.html. okay, and in here let me just type in something like hello my first web app. Okay, and in order to save it, let me just press Ctrl+X. okay, so it asked me whether I want to change the modifications. Okay, so I'll just type in y and then enter. Okay, now if I want to verify that whether my changes have been made into the file or not, I can just type in the command cat and then name of the file. Okay, so basically what it does is it just lists down the content of the file. Okay, so in here I can see hello my first web app, and I think there is a typo in my hello spelling, which is fine. Okay, so let me just quit this magnifier. Now what happens is that if I refresh this page, I should be able to see the new content, which is hello my first web app. Okay, so the point is to show you that how we can connect to the backend server and deploy the code manually. Okay, so a practical use case would be to go to this directory and actually clone all the project. Okay, using the git clone command. Okay, if you have been using the git repository, okay, you know all the commands. You should know all the basic commands of git push, git pull, git commit. Okay, I'll not be showing those commands because the point is not to show you the git commands, but the point is to show you how you can deploy a project manually by connecting to the backend server. Okay, in this lesson we will talk about the process of continuous integration and deployment, or in short it is also called CI/CD. So in an environment where the rapid changes are being made into the application and the upgraded versions need to be published in the minimum time, or the bugs in the application that need to be fixed ASAP, the process of code deployment on the production servers also needs to be made as quick as possible. Okay, so adding the same scenario, assume we have multiple applications, not just one but multiple applications to handle at the same time. In such case, deploying the updated code manually again and again becomes so tedious. Okay, not only tedious, but it is also very time consuming. So the process of CI/CD here comes to the rescue. Okay, so what happens is that with the CI/CD process in place, the developers or the deployment engineers do not need to handle the deployment of the applications manually. But all that needs to be done is to define the deployment process using some special syntax so that the updated code is pushed to the code repository and the changes are deployed onto the production servers too, okay, and the whole process is automated, okay. So in this lab we'll do a hands-on of CI/CD process using GitLab. Now please note that the main prerequisite of this lab is to have an understanding of the source code management systems and their basic commands for like GitHub or Bitbucket. So we have a lot to cover in this lab, so let's just jump into it quickly. Okay, so let's just begin with the demo, and the first thing that we will need is an Apache server virtual machine. Okay, so I've already created the virtual machine and installed Apache server on it. Now we have installed Apache server in one of our videos, okay. The commands, I'll be using these commands, the same commands that I used in my other video in which I installed the Apache server. Okay, so you can use these commands once again. Actually, these three commands. If you start from here, that will be a script. So you'll be just using these two commands to install the Apache server. Okay, and once you install it, you can verify it by just grabbing the public IP of the virtual machine and then opening it in a new tab. And then you should be able to see the Apache web server, okay, Apache web page, the default web page. Now let me go back to my virtual machine. Let me just clear the console. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to log into our server and download the runner binaries. Okay, these runner binaries are the GitLab agents, okay, that need to be installed on the server. Okay, so the command for that would be this one. Okay, I'll just copy it and paste it here. Okay, so the next step, I have to make this binary executable. Okay, in Linux the binaries by default are not executable. You have to use these commands to make them executable, so let's just do that. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is to create a CI/CD user. Basically, this user will be responsible for performing all the CI/CD tasks. Okay, so let me just create the user. Okay, now it's time to install the binary. As for now, we have just downloaded the binary and made it executable, but now let's just install it by using these commands. And then finally I will start the Git service. Okay, so this runner service, this GitLab runner service will be running on my server all the time. Okay, so now it's time to register this server into my GitLab account. Okay, so I'll log into my GitLab account now. Let me open the GitLab sign in page by typing in GitLab sign in. If you do not have an account on GitLab, I encourage you to create one. Okay, you can also use the Google account as I'm using now. So I will sign in using my own Google account. Okay, so as for now, I only have one project. Okay, this is actually a backend service, so I'll not be using this project for demonstration. So let's just create a simple project and use it for the demonstration. Okay, so click on new project. I'll be using a blank project. Okay, you can use templates as well, but for the demonstration, it's best to create a blank project and start from the scratch. Okay, and I'll be using the visibility level to be public. Okay, because it's not a production project, so I'll be just using the public view access level, and give it some description. It could be anything. Let me just call it demo. And then the name of the project, let me just call it demo project. Okay, and then it gives me the URL as well, which I'll be using for cloning the project. Okay, we'll see that in a while. So let's just create the project. Okay, once you create it, you will see these commands. Okay, so these commands are basically used to set up this repository onto your local machine or any machine that you want. Okay, so let's say I want this project to be configured on my local machine as well. Okay, which I'll be using for the development purposes and testing. So let me just go to my D drive, And in D drive, I already created the demo project. So let me just delete this project for now and start from the scratch. Okay. So what you need to do is to have pre-installed the Git. Okay. I'll not be demoing how to install Git. Okay, because it is very simple. You just go to the Google and read the installation commands, and that's it. It's pretty simple. Okay. So once you've installed it, I want to clone the project. In my D drive. Okay. So in my D drive, let me just right click on some blank space, and then if you have installed Git correctly, you should be able to see these two options. Okay, Git GUI and Git Bash. Okay. So the first thing that I need to do is to click on Git Bash, and then this tab that you see over here, this is Git Global Setup. And this we will have to use some, you can call it some kind of credentials, okay? Not the password, but a username and user email, okay, that I have used for this account. Okay, so let me just Control C, I'll copy it, and then I can paste it in here. So the global username has been set up, and then I will set up the user email as well. Okay, both of these things have been done. So now if I need to clone the project onto my local directory, what I need to do is on my D drive, once again I'll click on some blank space, and this time I will go to the git bash once again, and in here you can type in git clone. I assume you are already familiar with these git commands, okay, because this demo is not for git, this is actually for the CI/CD. So if you have no idea about how the git works, I encourage you to go and visit these commands before you come onto this lecture. Okay, so what you need to do now is click on the project once again. Okay, so what I'll do next is I'll clone this project, this empty project, onto my D drive. Okay, and from there I can start working on it. So let me just go to my D drive once again, and then click on some blank space like before, and git bash, and then I will type in git clone, and now I have to grab the clone ID of my project. Okay, so you can see this blue button clone over here, and it gives us two options. I can either clone with the SSH, but I'll not be using that. I can simply clone with the HTTPS link, so I'll use that with this button over here. I'll copy the link and then paste it right in front of this this git clone command. Okay, so let me just paste it, and if I click enter, it tells me it's cloning the project. Okay, so it tells me that you appear to have cloned an empty repository. That is pretty obvious because we have not created anything, we have not uploaded any file into our project. Okay, so all we're going to say is an empty demo folder, project folder. So if I go into this demo project, you see that the folder is empty, and all I have is this one .git folder, okay, which is hidden, by the way. I have enabled the I have enabled the hidden folders to appear in my folder, so that's why I'm seeing this. So if you go into these folders, you can look into some configurations of the Git by default, but I encourage you not to mess with these settings. Okay, just leave them as they are. The default are the best ones. So now what I need to do next is, let me just go to my notepad file once again. What I need to do now is register this the runner that I created on my Ubuntu server. Okay, now I need to register that into my project. Okay, so how do we do that? The setting that I require is in the settings, CI/CD and runners. Okay, so I'm already into my project. Go to the settings. Okay, just hover your mouse onto it, and then go to CI/CD, and then in here you should be able to see this runners option. Okay, so just click on it and make sure that this option is disabled, this option that says enable share runners for this project. Okay, we are not using multiple runners to handle the same project, so that's why I do not need this option. Okay, and the next thing that I need is these two links. Okay, the first one is the registration URL, and the second one is the registration token. Okay, so what I need to do now is to register this runner, the runner that is running onto my Ubuntu server with this project. Okay. So I'll use this command sudo gitlab runner register. I'll copy it and then paste it. Okay, so now it's asking for the registration URL. Okay, I've already shown you that the registration URL is right over here in the runner section. So I'll copy it and then paste it over here. And the next thing it is asking is the registration token. Okay, so I have that too. So I'll copy it once again and paste it in here. And then it's asking for some description. Okay, so the description for my runner would be, let's say, let me just name it the same as the project name. So it's a demo project. Okay, tags just leave them as empty. Okay, now this is an important step. Now it's asking for the executor. Okay, the executor that will be used to run the scripts for CI/CD. Okay, so most of the time we'll be using shell. So I'll just type in shell over here. And my runner has been registered successfully. Okay, so if you want to verify that, you can see that I have no runner over here right now. Okay, so if I refresh this page and expand the runner section once again, you can see that my runner is running successfully. Okay, this is the same name that I gave in the description, so it tells us that everything is going fine so far. So let's just move on to the next step. Now what I need to do next is give the no password permissions for the CI/CD user that we created in one of the steps above. Okay, this just creates this just makes the process simpler. Okay, because during the scripts, when I'm running the scripts, when I'm running the CI/CD script using this user, using the CI/CD user or the GitLab user, it will not ask for any password. Okay, so the way we do it is, first of all, you type in this command sudo vi sudo. Let me just clear the console for better visibility. Now paste in this command and it will open the file. Okay, it will open the file. So all I have to do is to go to the end of the file, or you can just add this line anywhere. Okay, but I'll just prefer end of the file, and copy this command gitlab runner all and no password all. Okay, so I will paste this line and then I will save this file by using Control X and then Y. So now this file has been saved. And then I have to clone the online repository locally. I have already done that. Okay, I've already created a project and I've also cloned the project locally onto my D drive. Okay, so let's just move on to the next step. Okay, so our next step is to create a .gitlab-ci.yml file into our project root folder. Okay, now make sure that you do not do any typo in this file name. Okay, because if the file name is even slightly different, it's not gonna work. Okay, so let me just copy this name, go to my project root folder that I've cloned locally, and then create a new file and then change the extension to YML. Okay, let me just confirm that. Was it YAML or YML? Yes, it is YML. Okay, so I'll just click on yes. Now I have created a simple YML file. Okay, it's empty for now, and for the sake of demonstration I have created a very simple script and we will analyze that in a while. Okay, let me just copy that script. I'll open my YML file in the Notepad++. It's one of my favorite editors. Okay, and I'll paste it in here. Okay, so the way YML file works is that this YML file is actually the whole script. This is the most tricky part in the whole CI/CD. Okay, with GitLab. Now this file contains the script that will be executed during the initiation of CI/CD process. Okay, so when the CI/CD process is initiated, these are the steps that will be followed. Okay, so now in here we have defined the stages. In stages we have development, we have testing, development. Okay, but for now, for the sake of demonstration, I only have I have only defined one stage, which is the deployment stage. Okay. So I will just go to the direct deployment. There is no testing phase or anything like that involved, because this is just a demo. Depending upon the structure of your organization, you might have to pass through certain stages. Okay. But for this demo, this will do. Now, the deployment stage is, in the deployment stage, I have once again declared the stage equals to be deploy and the script. Now the script is actually the set of commands that will be executed on the server, okay, using the same user that we created on the server, okay, which was, I believe, GitLab user something, GitLab runner, something like that, okay. But we created a user for that explicitly. Now let me just save this file. Okay, so before I proceed, I forgot to do one step. Actually, we have to add the server key. We have to add the SSH key for this project, okay, for this server actually into this project. So how can we do it? Go to the settings, and go to CI/CD once again, and then in here you should be able to see the the variables, okay. So if you look at these variables, click on expand the section and click on add a variable, and then you have to name the key. Now the name of the key has to be, let me just confirm it. What was the name of the key that we have to provide? Okay, yes, SSH underscore private key. Okay, so this is the name of the variable that we have to provide without the $, because this is a variable. And in here we have to paste the content of the private key. Okay, so during the creation of the virtual machine, I've already created the public private key. So I'll go to my downloads, and this .pem extension key, I'll open it with the Notepad++, and then copy all the content, okay, starting from this first hyphen all the way down to the last hyphen. I'll have to copy it and then paste it in the value section. Okay, so I will paste it in here and then click on add the variable. So basically what happens is that when the CI/CD process executes, it has to establish a connection with the Ubuntu server, okay, that I've created. Now the way it creates the connection is via SSH, okay, and for SSH we know that it requires the key. So I have created a key. I have added that key into my project, okay. Now what I need to do next is, okay, so I've already created the YML file. Now what I will do next is I will go back to my project folder, and let's say I create some file called index.html. It could be anything, okay, it could be your own project. It just depends upon your own project structure. It's not necessary. I'm just creating a simple project, so that's why I'm just creating a simple YML file and an HTML file, okay, and then I'll be uploading this to my Git repository. So I'll open it with the added Notepad, okay, and let me just type in something simple as my first run. Let me save it. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to actually pass this local changes that I've made locally onto my remote repository, okay. So the way we can do it, we can also use git bash, and we can also use the GUI, okay. So since I'm on Windows, I'll use the git GUI, okay, because it's simpler. I do not have to copy the commands again and again. So I will right click and I'll click on git GUI here. Okay, so as soon as the git GUI launches, it tells me that there are some unstaged changes, okay, because these files were not present at the time I cloned this repository from the remote repository. At that time, these two files were not present, but now I have created these files, so that's why it shows that there are two unstaged changes, okay, and under the unstaged changes section, it shows me the two files that I've just created, okay. So let's say if I create a new file, okay, and I go to the GUI once again and rescan, it will identify that a new file has been created into the project directory, okay. So for now I do not need any new file. I just delete it once again, and go to the GUI and rescan, and that file just disappeared. Okay, so we are good to go. So the next thing that we need to do is to stage the change. Okay, click yes. This just affirms that yes we are willing to make these changes. Okay, so let me just type in some commit message. Okay, it's necessary, by the way. So let me just say files uploaded, and once you click commit, you are ready to push your local files onto the remote repository. Okay, so let me just remind you that our local repository still is empty because we have not created anything. We have not created any file, any code into our repository. Okay, that's exactly what we are about to do now. So I will click on push, and for now I just have the master branch. Okay, I do not have any other branches. I'll be uploading the code directly to the master branch. Okay, so I'll click on push. Just give it a while before it succeeds. Okay, so the push has been successful. Okay, so as soon as the push process was commenced, it should have triggered the pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline as well. Okay, so we can view this by going to this CI/CD icon over here. Okay, I'll just open it into a new tab. Go to the CI/CD and go to this pipeline section. Okay. Okay, so as soon as I push the code, what should have happened is that if the push was successful, it should have triggered a CI/CD pipeline. Okay, and the changes should have been visible onto my Ubuntu server. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Okay, so I'll go back to my YML file, and I just noticed that I have named it wrong. Okay, you see this YML that this is occurring like twice. Okay, so I'll have to correct the name. Make sure you make no mistake in creating this YML file. Okay, so I've corrected the name now. It was just a simple mistake, but usually we come across much harder problems to be troubleshooted. Okay, so but that depends upon the project that you're working upon. So make sure you take care of these little things. Okay, because later on they are very hard to troubleshoot. Now let me make a small change in my project once again, so that I can push it to my remote repository once again, so that it can trigger the pipeline. So I'll go to the GUI and rescan. Okay, so it tells me that two changes have been made into my project. Okay, one change was I edited the index.html file. Okay, you can see that the line that has been edited is this one, which appears with the plus sign. Okay, and I have renamed this GitLab YML file. Okay, so I'll just state the changes. Okay, and provide a commit message. Let me just call it corrected. Press commit and then click on push. Okay, so the push is successful once again. Now it should have triggered the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so click on this CI/CD option once again, and in here you should see that the job is in progress. Okay, so if I click on this job, this is basically the job that initiates the CI/CD process. Okay, so if I want to view the status of this job, it tells me that it has been passed. Okay, but let me just show you one more thing. Let me just show you the console output of this job. Okay, so click on this passed button, and then in here and under the pipeline section, you should be able to see this option. Okay, if you want to rerun the job, you can just click on this button, but since the job has been passed, I do not need to do that. I'll click on this deploy button, and in here it shows me the whole console debug output. Okay, so if there had been any errors, it would have shown clearly to me that the error has been occurred because of it could be any error. It could be because of the privileges permission error. It could be something like a directory does not exist or something like that. Okay, the good thing about this console output is that it tells you clearly what the error has been. Okay, most of the time. So you have to troubleshoot that using this console. Okay, now if I go back to my server and let me just verify whether the changes have been made or not. Okay, so what that script was doing, let me just show you that script once again. So what that script was doing is, actually this command has been commented out, so just don't worry about this. Look at this command. Okay, this is the basic script command that I wanted to run. Okay, so the first thing that it does is it goes to the variable and www then html folder. It goes into this directory, and then the next thing it does is it removes sudo rm -rf demo project. It removes any folder if it exists by the name of demo project. Okay, because this is the project that we are going to that we are about to clone. Okay, so if this project exists already, it the clone command will fail. Okay, so if you're running this for the first time, this command will not do anything. But on the second run, once the project has been cloned into that directory already, and you're about to clone it once again on the second or third run, what it does is it will delete the already created project and clone a new one. Okay, so this is exactly what we want our script to be. So let me just go back to my server and verify if the changes have been made according to this script or not. Okay, so we are already into our HTML folder. Let me just type in ls. Sorry, it's not the capital one, it's the small one. And as soon as I type ls, you can see that the demo project has been created. Okay, now by default, if I grab the public IP address of my virtual machine and open it into a new tab, by default it targets the main HTML page. Okay, which resides into the HTML directory. Okay, so actually what I want is I don't want to land on this page. I want to land on this directory, on the HTML directory, so I can from there I can traverse deep into this demo project and view the index.html file that I have created. Okay, so I'll remove this index.html for now. Okay, so if I refresh this page now, it takes me to that directory. Okay, and I can see the demo project directory right over here. So if I click on it, and when I open the index.html page, I can see the text that was written into my index.html page. Okay, so let's do a bit of experiment. Let me make some changes into my index.html file once again and push the code and see what happens. Okay, so I'll just increment this 1 by 1, so it becomes 2. I'll save it, go to my GUI once again, rescan the changes, and it tells me that there has been a change in this line. Okay, which appears with the plus sign. So I'll rescan it and stage the change. Okay, which once again affirms that I confirm that these changes have been made and I am ready to push these changes onto the server. So let me just type in some commit message. Okay, let me just say call it changed index file, and then click on commit and then finally push. Okay, so the push has been successful. Another job should have been created. Okay, so I'll go to my CI/CD option once again, click on this CI/CD, and we can see that the second job has been initiated. Okay, and currently it's in progress. Okay, so if I want to view the status of this job once again, I'll click on this pending. Okay, or passed. Oh, and it looks like it just passed. So I'll click on it once again, and once again I'm able to see the script, the console output of the script that was executed. Okay, had there been some errors, it would have shown me clearly. Okay, so let's just verify the changes. So let me just grab the public IP address of the virtual machine once again, open it in a new tab, and this is my project folder. So I'll go into this folder, And here you can see that the index.html file was being targeted, and I had already made the changes. I have created this change. I inserted this 2 instead of 1. Now I can see that the change is visible. So you see the advantage of CI/CD now, that the developers do not need to deploy the code manually onto the virtual machine. All they need to do is to just push the changes that they've made into their application, and they push the changes directly to the remote repository, and then from the remote repository it is automatically, the whole application or the code is automatically deployed onto the virtual machine. Okay, so this is how useful it is. This is how useful the process of CI/CD is. Now keep in mind that there are other tools for CI/CD as well. One of the most common tools is Jenkins. Okay, GitLab is also famous. So Jenkins has its own process, okay, but the idea is to show you the overall flow of what actually CI/CD is, what is the pipeline, and how this whole thing works. In this lesson, we will learn about what is Docker and containerization process, and how we can create a simple Docker container process. Traditionally, what we have is a virtual machine in Azure or AWS or some other cloud service provider, and then we install our application or package onto the host operating system of the virtual machine, and then make some necessary configurations to have our application running. Now, as we know that most often our applications require some libraries or dependencies to be installed as well, so that our application can work as intended. But sometimes we have to run multiple applications on the same host machine, and the problem arises when both of the applications have conflicting dependency requirements. Okay, so not only that, but also imagine that you have created an application that works just fine on your machine, but someone else complains that it is not working at all on their machine, most probably due to the required packages not being installed on their machine. Okay, so if we go to the traditional deployment method, what we would do is set up a whole new virtual machine and then configure everything from the start, and then also we have to pay for all those virtual machines separately. Okay, but containerization solves all of these problems. Okay, so what happens is that the containerization process actually virtualizes only the kernel part of the operating system, and then creates a self-dependent package of your application in which all the dependencies are installed and all the required configurations have been made. Now, if someone wants to test the application, he just has to run the image in a container, and then the application will work just fine in the same way as it was running on your machine. Okay, so the additional advantage is that containers are very lightweight, and instances can be initiated and killed in a matter of seconds. Okay, so this was just a brief introduction to the containerization process. I encourage you to look more deeply into the architectural perspective of the whole containerization process. Okay, so in this lab we will just set up a simple Apache container using Docker image. Okay, so let's see how it is done. Okay, so my virtual machine is ready, and the first thing that we need to do is to install the Docker. Okay, so in order to install the Docker, I have already downloaded the installation commands, but if you want to go to the official website and grab the commands, you just have to go to the docker.com. Okay, and then scroll all the way down until you see this small option which says docs. Okay, so just click it and then click on get started. Okay, and from here you can click on get Docker, and then from here on you can select the version of the Docker that you want. Okay, so if you are on Mac, you will select this option. If you are on Windows, you'll select this one. For this demonstration, I'll be using the Ubuntu operating system, so I'll click on Docker for Linux. Okay, and if you click on it, and since I'm using Docker, so I'll select the platform to be Ubuntu. Sorry, I'll be using Ubuntu as my platform, so I'll be selecting this option. Okay, which says Ubuntu. I'll click on it, and then it gives me all the installation commands. Okay, I've already created the list of these commands, so I'll not be using this page. I have this list right over here. Okay, so we can just begin the installation process. So I'll go to my virtual machine, and let's start with the first command. Okay, so this command basically will remove any previously installed Docker versions. Okay, we do not need to execute this command at this point, but just for the sake of following the flow, I'll copy it and paste it in here. Okay, so that's done. It tells me that it did not find any package, which is fine, okay, because we had not installed any Docker previously. Now the second thing that we need to do is to update the package repositories. Okay, now if you're working with Ubuntu or any Linux environment, you know that before installing any package, you have to update your package repositories. Okay, so that is exactly what we just did. Then there is the small script that you have to copy and paste it. Select Y. Okay, so that's done. Now copy this command. This is basically the Docker release key that you have to copy and paste it in here. It's okay, you don't have to worry about these commands. Okay, you just need to like sort of memorize it. You don't have to memorize them, just note them down and just type them or copy and paste them in the same order. Okay, so I've already done that for you. Okay, you can pause the video and note down these commands if you want. Then update the package repositories once again. And finally you have to install the binary that you just downloaded. Okay, so it's just like the setup file in the Windows. So in this step we are just installing from the setup file, and it will take a while. Okay, so our Docker has been installed. Now if you want to verify the installation, you can type in docker -- version. And it should give you the version. As you can see, the current version that is installed using the latest binary of the Docker engine is Docker version 20.10.6. okay, so everything is going fine. Let me just clear the screen. Okay, now it's time to actually create our image file. Okay, so as we discussed, the agenda of this lab earlier is that we will be creating a Docker image file for Apache server. Okay, now it is always a good idea to create a separate directory for your project. Okay, so as our project is Apache, so let me create a directory in our existing working directory, which is /home Ubuntu. I'll create a new directory by using the command mkdir, and then name of the project, let's call it Apache project. You can call it anything you want. Okay, now to verify that whether the directory has been created or not, we can use the ls command as usual. Okay, and as you can see, the new folder, the new directory has been created. Now let me go into this directory. Okay, now for each project, for each Docker project, what we need to have is a Docker file. Okay, a Docker file is must. So what I need to do is I will create a new file by the name of Docker file. Okay, so sudo nano and Docker file. Now you have to be very careful about the name of this file. Okay, this name of the file has to be exactly the same, DOCKERFILE. You cannot call it anything else. Okay, and the starting alphabet D should be always capital. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create the file. And I've already downloaded a script for Apache server. Okay, you can have a pre-built image for Apache server as well, but for the sake of demonstration, I have not done that. I will create a Docker image from the scratch for Apache server. So I've copied that script and I'll paste it in here. Okay, now you can see many commands in here. Okay, you really don't need to be confused about them. Okay, what you need to understand is the structure of this image file, like how it works. Okay, so I'll not be explaining all of these commands, just this from command, this run command, and in the end we have the expose command. Okay, so I'll be explaining only these commands. And if you want to learn more about how this structure, how this whole thing works, you're always encouraged to study more about these commands when you have time. Okay, so the very first command is from. Now what happens is that the beauty of containerization process is that you really don't have to make everything from the scratch. Okay, you can use existing packages, existing operating systems, to existing images of the operating systems, like the base image, and on top of that you can build your own image file. Okay, so in this case, in the very first command, I am pulling the Ubuntu image, okay, which is already on the Docker hub, like on it is a basically online repository on which we have many images. Okay, we have images for Apache, we have images for PHP, we have images for .NET, and many images. Okay, so whatever image you need, you will be pulling that. Okay, so in this case I only need a base image of Ubuntu, so I have done that in this command. And then this second command, we really don't need it, so let me just remove it. And then this commands that that have this keyword run with them. Basically, this run keyword will tell the Docker engine that these commands are actually the script that is supposed to be running on a separate virtual machine or in our within our image file. Okay, so this is actually the script for installing the Apache server. Okay, you might already be familiar with these commands. Okay, these are just the plain Linux commands, Ubuntu commands for installing the Apache. Okay, and this run is just the Docker keyword. Okay, and we already know the use of this run keyword. Okay, so the script will be prepended with this run keyword. And then finally we have the expose. This is a very important command because in the end we need to expose our container to a specific port. Okay, and we will see the practical example of it once we actually run the image. Okay, right now we are just creating the image, but just remember that we must know that to which port we have to expose our image. Okay, so now that our Docker file has been created, let me just save it by holding Control and X and then type in capital Y, press enter. Okay, so now our Docker file has been created. Okay, let me just verify that once more by typing in the command cat Docker file. So it just lists the content of the Docker file. Okay, and yes, everything seems to be okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is to actually build this image. Now remember that when you're working with Docker, you should know the difference between the image and the container. Remember that image and the container is not the same. Okay, you can call it a base file, while the container is actually the process that runs this base file. Okay, so this is the main difference and you have to remember it. So let's move on and try to build this image, okay, that we have just created. Okay, so let's just go ahead and build the image. Okay, so let me just grab the building image command, okay, which is this one. Okay, docker build -t and then my Apache. Let me explain what is it all about. Okay, so the docker build command is actually used to build the image that we have in that current directory. Okay, so as you can see, we are already in our Apache project, and in Apache project we have our Docker file. Okay, let me just show you once again. As you can see, we have our Docker file here. So the docker build command should be typed in here. Okay, which hold in the directory which holds the Docker file. Okay, so let me explain this command. Docker build command is used to run the image that we have in that directory, and this -t flag is also used to alongside this build command. Okay, you can search more upon the flags of this of every command individually. Okay, I will not be able to explain all of these flags, but let me just explain what is this my Apache. This my Apache is just the name that I want to give to my image. Okay, so let me just leave it as my Apache and then space and then dot. Okay, so this will actually build the image, okay, based upon this Docker file that we have in here. Okay, so let's begin and see what happens, see if we have any errors in our image file. Okay, so let me just press enter and let's see what happens. As you can see, it is pulling all the necessary packages or everything it is setting up based upon our image file. Okay, so it just takes some time. I'm not fast forwarding everything because I want you to see like what is the actual process that goes on during the building process. That's why I'm not fast forwarding it. As you can see, it is running all of the scripts, all of the commands. Okay, if you remember, we had exposed certain variables during the building in our image file. Okay, so now everything has been created and the image file has been created. So let me just verify that. Okay, so I will type in the command, which is docker image and ls. Okay, so basically what it does is it tells me that how many images do I have currently. Okay, so I have these two images. Now you might be confused, like we only created only one image. Okay, but where did this image come from? Now if you remember our docker file, the very first step, which was the from command, in from command we had also pulled an image which was Ubuntu latest. Okay, so what happens is that during the builder process, if there is some existing image that needs to be pulled from the online repository, it also builds that. Okay, so that is the reason we are seeing these two images in our directory. Okay, so my docker image is ready. As you can see, when I type in docker image ls, it gives me the total number of images that have been created. Okay, and it also gives me the size of the image. So now it is time to finally run this image inside a container. Okay, and then we will be able to verify that. Okay, so let me just grab this command. Okay, and I'll explain this command as we go. Let me just clear the screen for now. Okay, so the command to run an image is docker run. Okay, now in here we can see some additional flags and parameters as well. So I'll explain some of the most important ones. The first important flag that we have is -v. Okay, now -v flag is used to synchronize some local directory within inside the directory of the image. Okay, so basically what I'm doing in here is I am synchronizing this local directory. Okay, which is /home/ubuntu/apache project. You can see this is just the same directory as my current working directory. And I'm synchronizing this directory with the directory /var www and html. Okay, so as this is an Apache server, we know that this directories will already be created inside this image. Okay, once it is built. So I have synchronized this directory with this directory inside our image. Now this flag, which is -p and followed by some ports. Basically what's going on here is that I am binding the port number 49154 of my host machine, okay, or this virtual machine, to port number 80 for this container. Okay, so if you remember from our docker file, we had the last command was expose 80. Okay, which means that we are exposing this docker file, this image, this Apache server image, to port number 80. Okay, so this port number 80, in turn I'm binding it to 49154 of my host machine. Okay, we will see the practical use of it once the container is up and running. Okay, so in the end I'm just specifying the name of the image that I want to run. Okay, so if you remember, the name of my image was my Apache. Okay, so once that is done, let me just press enter, and my container is running. Okay, it gives me some random gibberish ID or something like that. Okay, so if I just want to verify that the container, whether the container is up and running or not, I can type in docker container and ls. Okay, so it tells me that some container has been initiated. The container ID is this. Now which container is it? Okay, because we can have multiple image files for our container. So which container is this? Okay, so in the image section, in this attribute, it tells me that the name of the image is my Apache. So by reading this name, I can know that this container is for Apache server. Okay, and then it also tells me that it also gives me the information about the port binding. We have already discussed that. Okay, so now it's time to verify that. Okay, so that is very easy. Just grab in the public IP address of the virtual machine. Okay, paste it in a new tab, and then full colon followed by the port number. Okay, so the port number is 49154. So let me just paste it in here, and you can see that our docker file has been created and the container is up and running. Now let me just show you that where did we get this from. container running 123, okay, some number, okay. So I've already created this index.html file. Now let me show you where I have created that. Okay, so within my project directory, I have created an index.html file behind the scene, because I told you that during the initiation of the container, what I've told my container is that you have to look into this directory, okay. From there you will have to grab all the data, okay. You have to entirely ignore the data which is inside your own directory, okay. So you'll be synchronized with this directory, with this home directory, okay, that I am specifying. So in here I have the index.html file, and if I go into my index.html file, I can see that I have specified some content. I have typed in some content in here, okay. So that is what we see in our in our container, okay, when we run it in a separate browser. 49154. Okay, so okay, let's just make some changes into this content, okay. Let me just delete this entire line, and let me just type in run 2, okay, and I'll save it, refresh the page, and as you can see in the runtime, it is synchronizing this directory with var www.html, okay. So that's the beauty of containerization, because my container is running in, because my image is running inside a container, but outside I have synchronized my local directory with the directory inside the container itself, okay. So I hope you get the concept. And one important thing that you have to remember is that whatever host machine port you are specifying here in this command, you have to make sure that this port is added into the inbound rules of your virtual machine, okay. So the way you can do that is, if you remember from one of our lectures, just go to the networking section. Now the reason why I was able to run this container in a browser was that I have already opened this port, okay. As you can see in here, I have added an inbound rule which is the name by the name of Docker port, and then the inbound port that I've specified is 49154, okay. So you just have to go to the networking section and add inbound ports, and leave the source port ranges destination any, and then the destination port range you can specify 49154, okay. Or you can have some restrictions in this section as well, okay. But that is not the topic for this lecture. But I hope you get the concept, like how the container works, and how we can create our Docker file, how we can create an image of it, how we can run the image, okay. You have all these commands. You can pause the video and view and note down all these commands if you want, okay. There is one more amazing thing that you can do with this whole setup, is that you set up a pipeline for this directory, okay, using one of our previous lectures in which I explained the process of CI/CD, okay. And then you have to make sure that whatever changes are made inside the online repository are reflected inside this directory, okay. And within this directory, as you can see, that this directory has already been synchronized with our image, with our container, okay. So those changes that have been committed by some developer in their online repository on GitHub or GitLab, they should be reflected inside our container, okay. So this is a more practical use of this whole process, okay. You can set up the CI/CD in this fashion as well.
I'm going to show you how to create the Linux server, and then how to access that in our practice lab. So the method is almost similar, but how it is different when we are going to access that instance, because we cannot RDP Linux, so we have to SSH. So first thing first, we need to click on the launch instance under EC2 instances section. So click on the launch instance. So I'm gonna give name Linux server. So from here we are going to choose Ubuntu. So select this one, and we are interested in a free tier eligible. This is T2 micro basically. So it will appear here. Okay, so this is free tier eligible, and if I will type T2 micro, So basically this is automatically it has chosen that free tier eligible for us. So select this one. Yeah, as you can see, the instant type is T2 micro. So this is just giving the version name and the volume hard disk drive it is attached with, okay, and the infrastructure of that one. Here it is going to give me basically the instance type, which is T2 micro. So you have to select that one. And the key pair, if you haven't created the key pair, you can create the key pair, but I have been using one key pair that I have already created, which is KP. So select that one. Under network settings, I have already created my primary VPC with primary subnet. So I'm going to choose that one and click on edit, because I have to enable auto assign public IP address so I can SSH through my public IP. So after that, I need to select existing group, or I will keep as it is create security group. So what does it exist? It exists the rules that is having SSH with the port range of 22, and we know that 22 belongs to SSH. So this is going to enable, and this rule will be applied where on inbound. What does it mean inbound? We have this, let's suppose this Linux server, okay. As the request comes in, this is called inbound, because we have to SSH from somewhere. I have this remote my machine from where I have to SSH into this Linux. So that is why inbound. So that is why this rule is applied as inbound, okay. After that, we are going to attach the storage drive, which is already there. As you can see, 8 GB, okay. After that, this is pretty much it, and just click on the launch instance, and this is going to create my EC2 instance. Click on view all instances and click on refresh. So as you can see, this these all previous Microsoft based servers are either in a terminated state or in a stop state, but this Linux is in a pending state. So just keep refreshing it, and as you can see, this is in a running state, but this status check should be 2 by 2. So I'm gonna join you back once this status is 2 by 2. Okay, so once the status check is 2 by 2, it means this Linux server is up and running and we can access this server. But before I just show you how to connect this to this Linux server. So these are the same things that we have been in a Windows server as well. So we have been learned in the Windows server as well. So these are the the information about that particular server, what private IP addresses belongs to this server, what is the public IP address, what is the state of this instance server, this is the total DNS information. And then if you will come down, the type of this instance is a T2 micro, and which VPC does it belong to, does it have elastic IP address or no. Then this is the subnet ID that it belongs to. The platform is Ubuntu, okay. So before we had been using Linux, and what key pair it is using. So these are the pretty much information that we know from my Windows environment as well. So select this Linux server and then click on the connect. So we have different methods to connect this, but since this we are using practice lab, it has some limitations. So let's suppose this one is EC2 instance connect. If you have your own account and you will click on EC2 instance connect and click on the connect, after some time it is going to connect your EC2 instance server using the web server, okay. So sorry, web URL. But this, in my case, it is not working. In my case, we have to use SSH client, okay. To access SSH client, it has only already given us instructions like open SSH client, locate your private key file, the PAM file that I've been using, which is mentioned at kp.pam, and then we have to give privileges 400 to this PAM file, and then with the help of this public DNS, or this is the example they have given, we can access our the console of Linux server. So let's do it. What I need to do, instead of going to my SSH from this command prompt of my local device like here, because I'm sure it is not gonna work, what we can do, we can click on this Cloud Shell. So click on Cloud Shell and let it load this Cloud Shell. So meanwhile, what I can do, sorry, I can get rid of this. I can just copy the same thing here, so I can get the information about the EC2 instance. Just go to the EC2 instance is running, and this is the Linux server that is running currently. Select this one, or either click on connect. So these are the information that I'm looking for. So as you can see, the console is available, but this is like a web console. Okay, so this does not belong to my this Linux server, by the way. So to access that, what I need to do, I need to download that kp file, okay, which I have already downloaded. As you can see from here, download section, if I will open this folder, as you can see, we have kp.pam is available there. But what we need to do, we need to download here. If I'll do ls, these are the previous PAM files that are placed there. So what I need to do, I just want to remove those. rm -r kp.pam and rm-r. Okay, so I have removed my old PAM files. So what I need to do, not download, sorry, we need to upload that file. So click on upload file, select file, and from here select this kp.pam and click open and click upload. So as you can see, it is being uploaded here and it is 100%. So it means it has been uploaded successfully. So click on ls. If I just can increase the size from here, so you can clearly take a look what is going on. So I think this is better. Okay, so kp.pam file is there, and if I'll do ll-a to take a look of the permissions of that file, so if I can show you kp, this is the file. Okay, it has read-write permission, but we have to give the permission accordingly. As you can see, this is chmod 400 for that file. So what I need to do, I need to type chmod 400 and that file. Okay, so the permission has been changed, and if I'll do ll-a, okay, so these are the permissions that it has given after chmod 400. Okay, so what I need to do, just clear the screen. Now I want to SSH that file. So how you gonna do? So the command is already there. SSH -i, then the name of the file, which is kp.pam, and then you are going to access that server. Okay, with the name of the username is Ubuntu, by the way. Okay, and from where you are going to get this information, if I will take you by the way, to the instances and select go to the instances, and from here Linux, and this is the public IPv4 DNS information. So just copy this one, this information, again copy, come to the Cloud Shell, and you are going to use sudo command for that. Okay, ssh -i, then kppem file, and then name of the user, which is Ubuntu ubuntu at actually in my case, if I try to write the or try to type at symbol, it is not appearing. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to paste that is EC2 DNS name, and then I'm just going to copy this at symbol from here, copy, and I'm going to paste right after Ubuntu here. Okay, right click and paste. So just make sure everything is fine. So sudo ssh -i, this is the my PEM file, okay, which we uploaded. Okay, this is the name of the user, and the rest is basically the DNS name of my Linux server. Okay, so if everything is fine at this point of time, I should be able to log into that server. So I guess I just need to type U here. Okay, so far so good. So click on yes, and as you can see, it is saying, are you sure you want to continue with this connection? I'm saying yes, and as you can see, we have access to our Linux server. So we can type some commands like pwd who am I. Okay, so this is going to give you the information about your this Linux server. So this is how you are going to access your Linux server. So this lab has no any kind of case study, because this is going to be very simple. So what we are going to do, we are going to go to into AWS Management Console, and we will create EC2 Linux host, and we will try to access that host from our computer. So let's head over to AWS Management Console, which is already open for you. So after that, we have to go into the EC2 section. From here, select EC2. As you can see, currently no instances are running. Okay, so we need to click on instances from here, either from here, or you can click instances here as well. So click instances, and as you can see, currently I do not have any kind of host machine, either Linux, Windows, Ubuntu, nothing is running here. So in order to create, click launch instances. I need to give it a name. For example, I want to give Linux server, then just scroll down, and then we have to select. So from in my lab, I'm going to use Ubuntu for that. Amazon machine image, we are going to use free tier eligible, and also the instances types T2 micro, and then I'm gonna create the key pair login. So this one will be used when I will be logging using PuTTY. So click on a create new key pair. From here, just type name like Linux server KP, and I have to use ppk file that is used for PuTTY. Okay, as it is mentioned here as well. So click on create key pair. It is gonna download, so I'm going to download on my desktop and save that file. So as you can see, the file has been saved on my desktop. After that, I need to come down and allow, if you want, this is the security, and we have already covered these all things in our basic session. So this is also not different. So we are gonna allow firewall security groups, like allow SSH traffic from anywhere. Also, I want to allow HTTPS traffic and allow HTTP traffic as well. And then keep it as it is. This is regarding storage, so 8 GB will be enough in my case. Click launch instance. So instance has been created successfully. To view that instance, either I can click instances or this instance ID. So click on that, and as you can see, instance state is in a pending state. So just give it a moment. Meanwhile, it will the state will be changed to up and up. So keep refreshing. So now, as you can see, this is running. Okay. Also, the status check is initializing, but we can still access this Linux server. So to access this Linux server, select the checkbox, and here you will see some options like public IPv4, private IPv4 res. From private we cannot access. Okay, so we have to use public IPv4 res in order to access our EC2 Linux host. So copy this public IPv4 address. Then I need to come to the desktop. Just a minute. From here, as you can see, this is the file that we downloaded from our management console. So we need to go into the PuTTY, click on that. Then here is mention hostname or IP address. To view or to check what is the username we are going to use to access this host, what we can do, we can select this Linux host. We need to click on connect, and it is gonna give us the username, which is mentioned Ubuntu. So from here, come here and type Ubuntu as username and at the rate of and the public IPv4 address. After that, I need to come into the SSH section, or under SSH we have auth. From auth we have to click on the browse, and we need to select this ppk file which we downloaded earlier. So select this ppk file, click open, open, and we need to accept this security alert. And as you can see, we have successfully logged in into our Linux host. To change the size or increase the size, you need to click on these a very little symbol and then click change settings. From here, come into the appearance section and change, and from here select like the size 16 or whatever the font you want to select. Let's say Lucida Console, and click apply, and as you can see, the size has been increased. Okay, so this is just like a Linux host machine, and whatever the commands for the Linux we can use over here as well, like clear, and if I will say pwd, okay, who am I, okay, so something like that. Okay, so as you can see, we have created in EC2 Linux host, and we access using PuTTY. So your labs comes to end, and I'm gonna see.
Kali Linux is renowned for its extensive arsenal of pre-installed tools, which are designed for various cybersecurity tasks. So in this module, we'll categorize these tools into key areas, helping you understand their primary functions and how they can be used in different scenarios. This categorization will provide you with a structured way to approach the tools, making it easier to select the right one for the job. Let's explore this tool categorization, and we will, we'll talk about the fundamentals, about the basic information about these two. We'll give you the basic information about these two, so you'll get the idea like what's the actual purpose of these two. So in this module, we'll discuss the functions, we'll talk about the basics of these tools. But in our upcoming modules, we'll discuss these tools in a more advanced way. We will discuss and we will practically use these tools to perform penetration testing, performing cybersecurity tasks. So right now, I just want you to get familiar with these tools, with the basic functionalities of these tools, so you can get the ideas, you can get to know about these tools. This is a first step towards understanding the Kali Linux and its functionalities. Okay, so there are a couple of categories. Kali Linux has already categorized all the tools into different categories. So we will discuss about all those categories. We will talk about the tools that can be used, and which are widely used in the industry. And it depends on the categories. It depends on the specific requirements for which you are going to use those tools. So you can see on your screen right now, we have all the categories which have been used in Kali Linux to make sure that the tools which are used, which can be used by the security researchers, penetration testers, security analysts, they are well categorized for them to use those tools, to understand those tools. So it's basically the first you can see the types of tool. First category of the tools in Kali Linux is information gathering tool. So these are software or application which have a job of collecting and formatting the data in a form that could further be used. This is similar to cookies used by different websites, or your browsing history used by Google to personalize every advertisement and providing the best service to you. Kali operating system provides these tools to the developer and penetration testing community to help in gathering and formulating captured data. Some of the tools which are used are Nmap, which is also called Network Mapper, ZenMap, StateScan, Dimitri, Marteco. In this video, we'll discuss about one tool. From this category, we're just going to talk about one tool, which is Nmap. So let's log into our machine, virtual machine that we have created in our previous modules. Okay. So to start, let me just tell you about the categories first. So as you can see here, there are all these categories we have written in our slides that I was sharing a couple of seconds ago. So in this, when you go to the information gathering category, you can see there are DNS analysis, IDS, IPS identification, like host identification, networks and port scanners, open source intelligence analysis, open source tools which are used for the gathering of data based on threat intel data or any other data that's available online. Next is route analysis, SMB analysis. So these are categories, subcategories of the main categories: SSL analysis, MS, Dimitri, IQ Scan, Legion, Multigo, NetDiscover, Nmap, Recon, Spiderfoot. But this one, Nmap, it's widely used in the industry. It's most used tool in the industry. Why? Because there are like a lot of reasons. So it's a very simple command line tool, and from here you can see that they're like you can get the idea of the templates, of the syntax, sorry, of the command that can be used with nmap. So this tool basically gives you this tool perform footprinting and analysis on of the specific target. It finds out the open ports, it finds out the services running on those open ports and things like that. So it basically gives you complete information about a specific target. And that's the first step towards understanding, towards performing penetration testing about a specific infrastructure, specific environment, specific web application. So from this syntax you can see in this one, there's it's a website that has been used to scan, and that's being used to scan. But in the next syntax example, you can see it IPs ranges are given and those are being scanned. So there are like a lot of filters, lot of parameters that you can use to perform these kind of scans using nmap. So it's just it depends. Basically the basic syntax is to use nmap, and then scan types. You need to define the type of the scan, and then you need to target specification, like about your target. You can pass host name, IP address, networks. So you can pass host name. You can see there's a host name with the ranges, and then with the IPs ranges. You can even put a file, you can give it a file to so it can automatically detect the IPs or host from that file and use those to perform scans. These are like a couple of other categories in nmap. If you want to discover the host or specific you're just trying to find the host related to a specific target, then you can use these commands. Like there are multiple commands that you can use, to multiple parameters that you can specify in your scan types to find out information that you need. So if we go down a bit, there are like scan techniques that you can use, UDP scan, or there are like a couple of other categories. It totally depends on like what you want to scan right now. So port scan specification and scan order. So if you want to perform port scan on a specific port, like you want to find out, okay, like what's happening on port 22 if it's open for the specific target, then you need to define a port. As you can see here, you need to use this parameter to perform port scan on a specific port. But if you want to scan all the ports of a specific target, you need to give this parameter. You need to define this parameter to perform those scans. And then if you want to exclude specific ports, you need to give this parameter as well. So fast mode will scan fewer ports than the default scans. So it will just use to scan common ports and find out if there is any services running on those. It will not complete a scan. Service or version detection. So if you want to find out if there's an SSH port open, and you want to find out about the version of that SSH package that's being used, or if there is a server running, so you want to find out the version of that specific server. Suppose there's Apache, Nginx, these kind of servers running. So you want to find out the servers, the version of those packages. So this basically help you finding out the version of that specific package. Or if you just want to find out the service running. Suppose if you want to find out if there is a port open, and you want to find out which service is running on that port. So you need to define these parameters. You can use these parameters to find out version of service. Next, you can go with the script scan. There are like, if you want to use custom scripts, if you want to use specific script, so you can define these parameters and it will scan based on those scripts. OS detection as well. So if you want to perform a specific OS detection, suppose there is any you have defined a target, but you don't know which OS is running on that specific target. So these parameters, this O parameter or scan parameter or limit or scan limit or scan guess. So these three parameters are going to help you in finding out like which operating system is being used by the target. So these commands are related to the OS detection. Then there's a timing and performance parameters, firewall, IDS evasion, and spoofing. So most of the time these days, every organization have this kind of firewall, or if you are trying to perform penetration testing, these organization, they have a firewall evasion, firewalls and IDS implemented on their infrastructure. So you want to evade those detection parameters. So there are a couple of other filters and parameters that you can use to work on those evading techniques to make sure that when these scans goes undetected by these detection, you can say these IDS, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, or firewalls. Then you need obviously if you have performed scan, then you need some kind of output. You need a proper output, like in a format. So there are like a couple of parameters that you can use to get an output in like a normal in XML. So if you'd want to define a base name for the file, you can use these parameters. So it depends on you like what kind of output, what kind of output do you want. Like if you want to just simple output, you don't need to define these parameters. But if you want output in a specific format, then you need to define it in the command line. So we have discussed these we have discussed this tool. This is widely used network mapper and map. If you are going to use it from the command line, you just need to type nmap and it will start. Right. Okay, so we have discussed about information gathering in detail. We have used nmap to find out like what kind of information we can gather using nmap. Next category that we are going to discuss is vulnerability analysis. So we will just go to the Kali Linux, and you can see here the second category, number 2, is vulnerability analysis. Also, you can see nmap is also here. So through nmap, we have already discussed nmap, so I will talk about it right now. So for you to understand like how it can help you in finding out the vulnerabilities. So every vulnerability is attached to some kind of version, some kind of I'm just saying like 90%, more than 90% of vulnerabilities are linked with some kind of packages, which are they are like those packages are outdated, or vendor has released some patches but you haven't upgraded the package. So when nmap, you use nmap to find out the OS. So when you use nmap for finding out the OS version or service version, so it gives you a package number that this kind of package or this service is running. So through that, it fetches from its database. You can find out by yourself if you have a database. Obviously database vulnerabilities databases are available publicly, so you can find out the details for that specific OS version, or whatever service is running on specific ports. So that's how nmap can help you in finding out the vulnerability. Vulnerabilities are basically a state or condition of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed in one or other way. So these tools, you can see there are like a lot of tools: fuzzing tool, voice over IP tools, Legion, Nikto, nmap, Unix privilege escalation check. So these tools are used to check a system or machine for any kind of flaw and vulnerability available in them, which could lead to any security breach and data loss. These tools also help in fixing those vulnerabilities as identification, make the user aware of the flaw. For example, if Windows releases its new operating system, before providing it into the end user, they send for vulnerability analysis and fixes. So But most important tool right here is this one, Nikto. So Nikto is basically, complete package of finding out details about a specific if you target, if you find out the vulnerability. This is one of the best tool available. One of the best tool available on Kali Linux. So right now we have just started Nikto. We clicked on Nikto, and you can see option host requires an argument. So there are like multiple parameters that you can use with Nmap to find out information about specific target. So you can see scan tuning, interesting files, CNN logs, misconfiguration, information disclosure, injection, cross-site scripting, scripts, HTML, remote file retrieval, inside web root, denial of service, remote file retrieval, server-wide, command execution, remote shell, SQL injection, file upload, authentication bypass, software identification, remote source inclusion, web service, administrative console, reverse tuning options. So there's a lot of things that you can do with Nikto. It's a complete package, and we are going to use it in our next modules, couple of modules to when we will be penetration testing, when performing penetration test on specific targets. So we will discuss it in detail. Just now you can play with it, you can use its various parameters to find out like how it works. So basic, it has like a basic syntax. You don't need to learn remember long commands. You just need to if you want to start it, you can use Nikto, and you can type Nikto in command line. And if you want to perform scans on anything, performed, or just random website, okay, so it will start. Oh, sorry. So it will you just need to type a specific name of the website after h parameter, host parameter, and it will start scanning a specific website, or target or any IP. So that was all from our vulnerability analysis category. Next thing which is most important is web application analysis. So web application is a dynamic response web page that helps in a better interactive client-server relationship. These tools identify and access website through the browser to check any bug or loophole present, which could lead any information or data to lose. For example, if there is a website with a payment gateway, so then these web analyzers check if sufficient authentication and authorization present of the site. This web application uses SQL injections, denial of services, URL manipulation. So in this category, we will use Burp Suite most of the time. If there's a WordPress scans, it's also widely used in the market. SQL Map is widely used for performing SQL injections, for performing different SQL-based attacks. So this is also widely used. But we will mostly focus on Burp Suite. It's industry standard tool. So if you want to perform dynamic analysis of security testing, this is one of the best. So if you want to start a tool, you need to press on here, and it will start the tool, right? Okay, it's starting right now. Okay, so it has started. We need to accept permissions. Okay, so it's a complete package of intercepting requests from client to server, and manipulating requests, adding different parameters, or performing specific brute forces or directory based attacks. So this is widely used in the industry, and we will use it a lot in our next modules. So we just want you to familiar with these tools. We just want you to know the purpose of these tools, so you can know that you should have idea of why these tools are being used. Database assessment. Next category is database assessment. So these applications are made to access the database and analyze it for different attacks and security issues. These assessments show some opportunities for improvement and changes. So these tools develop a report of the analysis done on the database system. They perform configuration checking, examining user account, privilege and role grants, authorization control, key management, and data encryption. So SQLite database browsers, SQL maps, these will be used for performing database assessment to find out if there is any loophole, any vulnerability, or any misconfiguration on databases. Next and most important is password attacks. So these are basically a collection of tools that could handle the word list or password list to be checked on any login credentials through different services and protocols. Some tools are word list collectors and some of them are attacker. Some of the tools are, you can see there's Zeus, Crunch, Hashcat, Hydra, Joan, Medoson, and Crack, word list. So there are like a lot of word lists available. If you are going to perform offline attacks, there are tools for that. Offline attacks mean you have the hash, you have the key, and specific hash file, and you want to perform, a brute force to find out, the actual key from that hashed file. So you will perform offline attacks. Online attacks can be performed on online portals, which are, you don't have the hashes, you don't have anything offline, and you're just, there's a login portal or anything available online, then you will perform online attack. Then there's a passing the hash tool. So there are like a lot of tools to perform these kind of attacks as well. Password profiling and word list. So they're like, if you want to generate a custom word list based on specific patterns, so it will give you this Crunch tool. I have widely used this one. I'm mostly use this Crunch tool to generate word list based on specific patterns. So you just need to give it a specific pattern and it will generate a complete word list based on those patterns. Next category is wireless attack. These tools are wireless security crackers like breaking Wi-Fi routers, working and manipulating access points. Wireless attacks are not limited to password cracking. These are also used in information gathering and knowing behavior of victims over the internet. So for example, the victim is connected to a compromised access point or fake access point. Then it can be used as a man in the middle attack. Some of the tools that you can see right now, Aircrack, Fern, Kismet, PixieWeb, PixieWPS, Reaver, Firefight. Bluetooth tools are also available. 802.11 wireless tools. So Aircrack and Ghostwhisher are the widely used. They have been used widely in this from the Kali Linux, but I think Ghostwhisher is not available right now in Kali Linux. It has been removed. But Aircrack is still there. But you can find a couple of tools. There are like a lot of tools available in the market. So, but these comes with the pre-built Kali Linux virtual machine configurations. These tools will be already available in that image, which is available on Kali Linux official platform for the virtual machines. Next is reverse engineering. So I will just define reverse engineering first. Reverse engineering is basically to break down the layers of application or software. This is used in creating cracks and patches for different softwares and services. This tool reads the source code of the application, understand its working, and manipulate according to needs. So I will give you an example. Like reverse engineering tools are used by high-end companies to know the logic and idea behind the software. Like you just you perform, you crack, different. You analyze the source code. First thing to analyze the source code, and then you completely, you work on the logic that's being used in those tools, in those packages, and idea behind the software. So some of the tools that you can see in the reverse engineering are Clang plus. That's some kind of Metasploit. I haven't used it, but you can also see there's a Retari too. So these are the package available in the reverse engineering, but I think we need to upgrade our Kali Linux a bit more to to get the full packages. of Kali Linux. Like, I think there's some packages missing. I can't see. Um, I mean, I can't see APK tools, only DBGs. So there are like a lot of tools that are missing. So I need to go to the full version of Kali Linux. So I'll show you how we can do that as well. Then there's next category is exploitation tools. So these are tools used to exploit different systems like personal computers and mobile phones. These tools can generate payloads for the vulnerable system, and through those payloads, information from the devices can be exploited. For example, the target system is compromised using payloads over internet or installing it if physically accessible. Some of the tools that you can see on your screen right now is Metasploit Framework, MSF Payload Creator. That's also part of Metasploit. Searchploit, Social Engineering Toolkit, SQL Map, Crack, Map Execution, something like that. But we will focus on Metasploit. This is you can say this is, I think, this is one of the best. It's being used on every exploit. Mostly, I mean, 90% of the exploits that are being used, or sessions being created, C2C, command and control, and things like that. So it's widely used in those kind of things. So we will discuss about it. We will show you how Metasploit can be used to create malwares, create payloads, create specific, you can say specific files to perform these kind of tasks, like finding information from the target, like using it as a virus or malware, you can say. So we will create different malware files types, and we will exploit targets from the Metasploit. We'll create the session, we'll create we can do a lot of things from this tool. So we will use this tool a lot. So you need to get familiar with this tool. You need to you just need to find out a couple of information. If you need to perform research, you need to work on this tool to understand how the things work, how the malwares work, how exploits work, how we can exploit a specific target based on things available, based on information that you've gathered in the previous year. So we will use Metasploit a lot. So in our next module we'll talk about it, we'll discuss about it, we'll use it even for our penetration testing tasks. But till that, you need I want you to look at on different online platforms to find out more about Metasploit and information available about Metasploit. Like, there's an open source, like you can go to the Kali Linux website, and there will be information available related to that. So just read about it, and then we will obviously, even if we don't, we will discuss in detail. We will use this tool in detail to perform specific penetration testing tasks. Let's move on to next category, sniffing and spoofing. So this basically means secretly accessing any unauthorized data over network is it's basically called as sniffing. Hiding real identity and creating fake identity and using it for any illegal unauthorized work is spoofing. So IP spoofing and MAC spoofing are two famous and mostly used attacks. Some of the tools that you can see right now on your screen: Wireshark, TCP dump, Scapy, Responder, NetSniff, MITM proxy, Minicom, MAC changer. So you can see that if you want to change MAC address of your workstation, laptop, or your device, that you can use MAC changer, and then you can also use spoof your IP as well. So we will use these kind of tools a lot. Wireshark, this will be mostly used in our network security related tasks. We'll analyze the packets coming in, going out of our network. This gives a complete transparency over your environment. So we'll use this tool a lot in our upcoming modules. Post-exploitation is basically these tools use backdoors to get back to the vulnerable system, maintain access to the machine. As the name suggests, these are mostly used or useful after an attack has previously been made on the victim's machine. For example, After an attack, victim remove the vulnerability from the system. In this situation, if attacker wants to access data again, the vulnerability has been removed, but we still want to maintain access, we still want to access the data on our target's device, then these tools are helpful. Some of the tools are Metasploit framework. You can see, okay, so we can see there is a PowerSploit, Proxy Chains, Starkiller, Wavely, PowerShell, Empire, Netcat, Mimikatz, Impact, and X2X. So there are like a lot of tools available here, and we will use a lot of tools. We'll also use Metasploit for performing these kind of tools. The most famous of these tools is PowerSploit, which you can see here, and this is which is being used for post exploitation work. And next is forensics. So these tools are used by forensic specialists to recover information from any system or storage devices. This helps in collecting information during evidence searching for any cybercrime. So if there is a cybercrime that has happened and we want to find out information like how the things have happened and how how the actual attack has happened, how it has been exploited, and how the information has been breached or data has been theft. So these tools, Autopsy, you can see on your screen, Binwalk, Bulk Extractor, HashDeep. The most famous tool is Autopsy. It has also been used by security forces, many judicial and investigating officials. So this has been used by even government officials, and most of the time for performing any kind of forensics, this has been widely used. So we'll discuss about it a lot as well in our upcoming modules when we're performing penetration testing to perform, and then at the end when we'll be analyzing forensics as well. Then next, reporting tools. After all the assessments and vulnerability testing, analysts have to report all those to the client in an organized and authenticated way. So suppose you have performed information gathering, you have found a couple of information, you have found vulnerabilities in vulnerabilities analysis, you have found information in web application analysis, database assessment, password attacks, wireless attack, reverse engineering, exploitation tools, sniffing, spoofing. So you have found a lot of information in all those categories when you're trying to perform attack on a specific target. Next, the most important thing will be to make a report, make a detailed report, so you can show it to the organization who will give you the task to perform these kind of penetration testing. So some of the tools you can see: Cherry Tree, Cuddy-Cat, and Faraday Start, Maltego, People, Record My Desktop. Most famous tool out of these is Faraday, which is which is used for the reporting most of the time, but we'll also discuss about all other tools as well. And next is social engineering tools. As the name suggests, these tools these tools generate similar services that people use in daily life and extract personal information using those fake services. So these tools use and manipulate human behavior for information gathering. For example, phishing is one of the examples of social engineering. In this a similar looking homepage of any social platform is created, and then login details are compromised. So basically, in this we are going to create a couple of fake pages, couple of fake login pages, couple of other fake services to as per the human behavior. We after observing the human behavior, like if the person is vulnerable to specific things, we'll create specific pages and exploit target using those pages. Social engineering toolkit, you have obviously heard about it. If you haven't heard about it, we will talk about it a lot, because this is it's almost impossible to hack machines in this time. So most of the time attackers I'm not saying it's impossible. Obviously, you can. I mean, everyone. There's like every day when I wake up, I can see that there's 100 vulnerability coming into the market based on the packages and services running, and patches are also being released on daily basis. But most of the time, it's very hard to attack on machines. Very hard to perform uh, attacks on machines. So most of the time, attackers targets human. That's the weak link, as you have known. The human is most, I mean, it's the most weak link in this whole thing, whole interaction, whole communication. So you can exploit it. You can make him or her vulnerable based on their experience, based on their specific vulnerability. So you just need to observe their pattern, and then you can create pages, you can create fake Wi-Fi access points. So we will discuss about it in our upcoming modules. So in this module we have discussed a lot about these things. We have discussed about all those categories of tools which are available in Kali Linux, and we are going to use all these tools in our upcoming assessment. So thank you very much. I just want to say, like, this is just a basic information because there are like thousands of tools available in Kali Linux. So we are not going to use every single tool. We are just going to use some common tools that will be used, that are being used by industry professionals. Professionals in the industry. So they use these tools to perform daily tasks. So we will mostly focus on those tools. But if you want to learn about every tool, you want to learn about all the other things, then you can contact us. You can even comment us. You can share. You can even send us emails, like you want to learn about the specific things, and we will help you in understanding those tools as well. So, but we want you to focus on some of the tools which will be giving you tutorials, giving you information, so you can use those tools to perform tasks related to our ethical cybersecurity. You can say cybersecurity environment for ethical reasons. So that's the most important task. That's the goal of this whole course. So you can use these tools to perform tasks that are required by any kind of organization in the world, and this is going to help you in achieve that target. So if that's why we are just trying to make it short. We are trying to make sure that we only teach those tools which are helpful in your career. So that's it for today. Thank you.